My name is Christy Taft, and I'm from Atlantic Data Security. Happy Cyber Thursday. Every Thursday, the first Thursday of every month, we choose some of our premier partners to share with us their roadmap and any new products that they might have or any growth that they're going through. And I think it's a perfect time for us to discuss with George Wren, the CEO of CyberSaint, to discuss with us kind of what's going on in their world type of thing. I know that you just got appointed a speaker at one of the events coming up, so we're excited to have you, and we'd love to hear about your product. And I guess I'll kick it over to you.
Okay, great.
I'm going to actually make you a panelist. I did that before, but it kind of messed with your volume, so just make sure that you're you can unmute yourself if that happens.
All right. Can you still hear okay?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Nice to finally meet you. It's the man behind the curtain.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you all for joining this morning. So good morning, everybody. And I've just shared just a slide deck, and just want to make sure everyone can see it and hear the audio. Yeah?
Yeah, it looks great.
Okay. All right. So let me just, I guess, rewind a little bit. My name is George Wren. I'm the founder and CEO of CyberSaint. I'm also a CISSP, certified ethical hacker, and also hold the ISSEP, which is the designation that the National Security Agency came up with for folks working on very sensitive systems. And so I've been doing this for about 20 years, cybersecurity, and inevitably it comes down to meeting with customers, understanding where they are, where they want to go. But it's always sort of been outside of the business discussion. It's been outside the risk discussion at times. And so throughout my more than, I guess, 20-year career, and I've done writing and journalism, and I'm currently serving also at MIT as a researcher in their cybersecurity at MIT Sloan, which is cams.mit.edu for those folks who are unfamiliar. But throughout this 20 years or so of career, I've realized that there's a need for a way of having a system of reference, whether, sort of a PeopleSoft or something that would really capture the security activities of an organization and allow it to be communicated in a coherent manner. And so about 2 years ago, I quit my job of 4 years. I was running cybersecurity for a very large multinational critical infrastructure company, and decided to pursue this idea and build this platform. And so that's sort of a little bit of background on this. So I'm just going to go through this quickly. I have a hard stop at 9:30, but I'm going to quickly just go through this. This is not complicated, and that should leave just a little bit of time for any questions and so forth. And also, of course, you can speak with your Atlantic Data Security representative if you have further questions or you want a one-on-one demo or anything like that. Atlantic is a great partner of ours, and you can utilize them for that follow-on activities if you want to, again, a demo, etc. Or more.
We're going to actually send out a link to George that Allison provided us with to set up a demo. It's just an easy way of setting up a demo. So after, we'll be sending that out to all the attendees.
Okay, great. So what happens in civilized countries is, activities like cyber attacks and various things of that nature come about. And usually the response is governments typically end up creating new regulations to try mandates, laws, to try to sort of solve whatever problem there is. Oftentimes this falls in the hands of practitioners and companies and so forth. And this is just a slide here. I've changed slides to a Gartner slide, and this is pretty shocking in the sense that if you look at the amount of time it takes to assess, to conduct a proper assessment against a framework like NIST or ISO or any number of other frameworks, you can see here it's pretty shocking that 19% spent 1,000 to less than 5,000 hours doing an assessment. And you can see here on the high end, we're up to 10,000 hours, right? And this shows you sort of a rough breakdown in terms of their compliance against various security frameworks and controls to demonstrate business value here. And this is just quite shocking. So, 1,000 hours is a half of a full-time employee and a half of a full-time skilled employee. And so if you're looking for cyber talent, you're looking at anywhere between 80 and maybe, $70,000 to $80,000 just to conduct an assessment thoroughly, which is clearly a large amount of resource if you can even find it. So let me continue here. So what it fundamentally gets down to is it's a broken business process. This is why security is so difficult, because security leaders are fumbling around with spreadsheets, difficult to implement products that may not talk to each other in many cases. And it's very difficult to demonstrate compliance in any meaningful way. And also proof of adequate controls. Effectively, the regulatory burden is becoming stifling for a lot of organizations, and it's really only going to get worse as we progress in society. So what if there was a solution that mapped the growing list of standards and regulations to a universal language for continuous compliance? And so CyberStrong is that platform and solution. And it's very interesting in the sense that it's not only differentiated from other things out there, other GRC products or other products, it's also disruptive to the market. And the reason why I sort of put into two columns here, differentiated versus disruptive. Differentiated in the sense that it generates reports that are expected by auditors. So you've got 800-82 system security plans, you've got POAMs, you've got risk assessments, RAs, you've got the actual forms that they're used to seeing and want to see. Two-factor authentication, which is many of the solutions don't offer. It's available as an OpEx and not a CapEx model. There's no huge upfront investment. Seven-figure investment to get started. You can calculate return on security investment using our platform. We have risk assessment and VRM, which is vendor risk management, built into the platform, so you can create assessments and then delegate them for flow down and for other purposes. And there's no onboarding costs. Some of these platforms have anywhere from $15,000 to $150,000 on the high end of onboarding, configuration, customization, and that's months and years of time in some cases. Disruptive, we have patented AI that guides remediation plans and options, so you always have a continual guide to help you make the right next lowest cost, highest impact action, irrespective of framework. We also feed we take in a risk feed in natural language and feed that to Watson. And then we compare that to your current gaps that you may have so that you see on a daily basis which vulnerabilities or threats are coming out and how they map to your current assessment, and then suggest remediation actions to take. Fastest time to value, we can have you up and running in a matter of hours on even the most complex frameworks, and be able to, we've had CEOs and CFOs as customers, so you don't have to be a CISSP to be able to leverage the system and get value out of it. Lowest total cost of ownership. We support bespoke and hybrid frameworks. So if you tell us you've got NIST CSF 1.1, then you've got another handful of internal controls, we can create a bespoke framework that combines all of them together into one, or you can have multiple frameworks. They can either be public or private. If they're private to your organization, then of course they're only available in your context. And the user experience, the UX and the ease of use is really quite high. You'll see how clean and simple the interface is. If you can operate eBay or NewYorkTimes.com, you can operate our platform, which is really groundbreaking in many ways. So this is what the platform looks like. I hope folks can see this. This is just showing when you log in. You can see here the number, your overall roll-up score. Here it's a 68. You can see there are 4 assessments going on with different frameworks. So we normalize all of the scoring data. For those who are familiar with the NIST CSF 1.1, we've added measurement to that. Measuring your posture has been added, and so we do that both in terms of NIST as well as 800-30 risk. So we measure both risk and raw compliance. And you can see here there's industrial IoT, there's DFARS, which is a defense-oriented framework, and then we've got a bespoke cloud framework here that's been put together by the cloud management team. For an example, you can see here how many assessments have been updated in the last 7 days, how many controls have been updated, users logged on, and the number of new threats that have been brought in. So, effectively, we bring an entire compliance, risk management, documentation, workflow, reporting, and control optimization solution to you. And the only thing you need is really a 2-factor free, either Duo or Google Authenticator, and Chrome or Mozilla browser for HTML5. Other than that, you don't really need very much to get started. This is a simple, I don't know if you guys can see this. This is sort of the old way, the complicated and expensive way, and sort of the middle ground. And so what we see out there in the market is, people pencil whipping or trying to pencil whip with spreadsheets. And again, this even gets to seasoned auditors. When I was a seasoned assessor and auditor working for a large company, I would go out and we would often have custom spreadsheet built for various types of assessments, HIPAA and so forth. And it was just it took weeks, months, to complete an assessment, sometimes years. There was no clear plan of action once the assessment baseline was done. Difficult to navigate and control the data integrity. Data would change, spreadsheets would change, and you'd always have to call in the consultant to be able to hand crank the spreadsheet and the SSP, which would take hundreds of hours each year. So automation is out of reach for those folks, and we see about probably, I don't know, maybe 70% of the folks are doing it the old way. You've got on the right-hand side, the complicated and expensive approach, which, again, some 3-letter organizations, 2 of which I have firsthand experiences working for. Great products, expensive, great companies, great products, but again, very expensive, very complex interfaces, weeks of training in some cases, just to get basic functionality. Not all frameworks are supported, not entirely based upon NIST RMF or CSF or 853 families, doesn't have a grounding in that. And it just requires either we used to talk about configuration or customization. Those were the 2 terms that we used at either company, respectively, to define the differentiation between the 2. But either one was going to take a lot of time and money, whether it was configuration or customization here, organization. We've taken a middle ground approach, which is powered by, again, it's now patented. It's not patent pending. It's actually patented AI, machine learning, immediate ROI, supports any framework. We have a built-in NIST rules engine, which ties back everything into a singularity. We've got company-specific plans of action, assessment-specific plans of action, team-wide workflow. You can delegate controls out to different groups and organizations or even vendors outside the organization. We've got built-in threat intelligence, credible risk data, profiles and weighting, executive reporting, document exporting for auditors, and really future-proofing your compliance and offering you a continuous compliance solution. So really, in a nutshell, building a very strong foundation based upon proven standards. You can meet DFARS, NIST, FedRAMP, any number of different requirements that are increasingly becoming. We see increasing focus on NIST CSF and NIST 853, especially version 4 and 5, as sort of the golden standard of cybersecurity. Even ISO now is offering a NIST certification. I never thought I would see the day that ISO would embrace a U.S. standard with such vigor. But they have gone that way. High Trust has gone this way, and others. And really what our goal is to help stop endless, costly, chaotic, and overcomplicated security programs by having a simple platform that gives you a strategic approach and allows you to meet your business objectives and your security objectives. We also empower, again, your organization to communicate posture, both internally and externally, as you wish, in a format that's understandable. We help improve your resilience with our continuous improvement model. We allow you to be proactive, not reactive. And we allow you, of course, to save hundreds of hours of time on the low end, and up to thousands of hours of time, and millions, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of cybersecurity investment as well. So if you look at any of the areas of critical infrastructure, financial, healthcare, I know this is a growing bucket of areas. They all are kind of moving in this general direction. There's crosswalks and maps now from everything from SANS Top 20, GDPR, HIPAA. NIH is developing a profile for NIST for cybersecurity for healthcare. You see the same thing happening within the FSI-SAC. Financial Services is putting together a profile as well. So this is a very, everything is sort of, all roads are sort of converging on NIST, which I think is a good thing. These are the same people who brought you time, right? The thing that we take for granted as being a standard. These are the things who. These are the people who brought you universal understanding of weight and balance and things of that nature. So we can be pretty confident that NIST knows what they're doing when it comes to regulations, standards, frameworks. And again, our platform can map back and forth to all of them. And again, out of the box, we support natively NIST as well as the 800-37 risk model, which is very important to some folks. So again, visibility, resiliency, and communication, communicating up the chain of command, communicating to auditors, communicating to boards of directors, you name it. This is really a way to facilitate that. This is a sort of a zoom into the picture that we saw earlier, giving you a sense of sort of what a portfolio might look like for a company. This could be a company that has a factory, has a data center, an IoT application they might be rolling out. And you can see here, they may have even pushed out a fictitious assessment to a partner, Essex Financial, which is fictitious in this case. And so while Essex can complete their assessment, they can't see all of the assessments of the main organization, the subscriber. And you can look at, where the weak spots are and what the overall roll-up is in picture. You get a sense of where the weaknesses are and so forth. We can get you up and going in 4 hours, not 4 months. As we went through and worked on the NIST framework itself with NIST and as well as other organizations, we realized that the Pareto principle really does apply here, that you could probably get 80% of the value of over 300 controls by just looking at maybe 20% of the source. And so if you look at the NIST controls, they go from very, very hard, the first couple of questions, to somewhat more nuanced. And so really we've gone through and created, for those folks who don't know where to start, we started with a sort of 42 or so or 45 or so controls that get you really sort of down the road and are predictive as to where you will land if you were to go the full distance in a framework. Because as you get deeper into these frameworks, you start getting into nuanced things like users present a passport before they're granted a two-factor token, right? I mean, it gets really nitty-gritty, and a lot of the earlier controls like AC2, AC3, these controls, for example, cover a lot of territory, and they often have a serialized list of more than 10 controls embedded in one control. So in fact, this is a very great way to start. If you don't know where to start, or you haven't been told here are your controls or what you need to do, we address all 5 phases of the CSF, and this is a great way to get started. So as you get into an assessment, you can see here we're now in an assessment. We're looking at the NIST framework score. We can see here the identify, detect, protect, respond, recover. You can see the target versus the current, where you are versus kind of where you need to be or need to be this year or need to be at some point. You can see also the native NIST families on the right-hand side where the gaps are. You know, here system communication is a huge area of concern. Risk assessment might be an area. And just by using our platform, you get about probably 30 to 40% of most frameworks controls met, because we provide a system of reference, a strategy, a risk management capability, a threat feed, policies. We provide a good amount of stuff right out of the box to help you. So even if you have nothing and you use our platform, you're going to get 30 to 40% of the way along something like a NIST CSF in terms of being able to make forward progress. And so that's very important, because remediation it can be expensive. We can sort by users, who's been assigned. You can see at all times. You can sort by family. You can see my controls. If you look at the top right-hand side, what controls have I been assigned versus somebody else? So I only have to worry about the stuff that I have to take care of. I don't have to worry about everybody else's controls across the organization. I can really focus in on my area of expertise, and this could be anything from HR to networking and so forth. I've now gone into the optimization section, which shows you we're now out of sort of controls and into optimizations. And this is a sort of a simulator that shows you sort of like a FICO simulator in a way. And this is one of our patents using machine learning in AWS, where you can have that discussion of, okay, we're at 64, where do we want to go? And if low, medium, and high. And again, depending on, is this a data center we're going to sell in a year from now? Is this something that we're going to build our entire IoT strategy on? Depending on really sort of what the business drivers are, you can make a decision. And you can literally, go to a member of the management team and say, I think we ought to be an 81 if we're going to base our IoT stuff on this by the end of the year. And if you click on this, it will show you in lowest cost, highest impact, what are the things you ought to do to become an 81 or thereabouts. There is a bit of fuzzy logic here, so it could be, you could do 28 controls and wind up as an 82 or an 80, but it's generally within 1 point of accuracy. And again, it depends on how many data points there are going in. We also provide an area for supporting evidence. Auditors want to see supporting evidence, things like policies, settings, things of that nature that show you what exactly you need. We also provide a description of what evidence is required to meet this control. Here, the evidence required is a policy. And you can see here we've got, again, all of these policy templates that map to specific control families and help you, if you have nothing, come up with procedures, everything from incident response policies and procedures to hardware and software maintenance, audit trails, logging, you name it. And so having these policies that are about 95% complete and being able to adopt them as needed and to make them your own, review them with your team, version them, and all of that is a great help. And again, this can really help propel you forward in terms of your assessment. This right here is I'm showing now the risk management portion, and also you can see here the workflow status. So we offer workflow status. So if you have a maker checker where you're delegating controls, but you want to be the final reviewer as the chief security officer or as a security organization, you can do that here as well. So you can tell your teams that the furthest you can go in an assessment is needs review, and they would mark that off, and you would see, these things need review as the director of security or as the whatever role you're in. You can see here the 800-30 risk assessment, which shows you what the likelihood is, the impact, the priorities, kind of confidentiality, integrity, availability, the threat types that might be encountered. the impact from a business perspective, and then also the financial impact. And we show that, and again, that can be tuned in the reports, but we also have sort of broad ranges for folks in there. As the scoring panel will allow you to also select what the remediation cost is. So between remediation cost and financial impact, if something goes awry, you can calculate per control as well as an overall return on security investment. This is scrolling down in the application. You can see here by NIST family, by the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, your protection priorities. You can see business impact as well as threat type. You can see mitigated risk, remaining risk, and residual risk across those types of, and this is again within this assessment, but this report is also offered at a global level. So at the very highest level when you log in, you have all of your assessments and you're not in a specific assessment, you can see the overall across the board risks and where you stand. As far as the team is concerned, we've assembled a pretty Top Gun group of folks. We've got folks from, again, from various institutions, KPMG, Central Intelligence, Israeli Navy, IBM, EMC, RSA, MIT, Harvard, Cambridge, University of Cambridge, DTCC, Brown University, and others. So we've got a group of folks who are seasoned cybersecurity veterans who've been involved in cybersecurity startups. Some recently have been sold to folks like IBM and others. Resilient, for example, one of our board members and advisors hails from HBS and also was involved in leading Resilient to success, and several other Q1 Labs, BidSite, and again, so the team is really quite a good team, and again, there are more folks than this. Even we're growing now to what will be over 15 by the end of this quarter. And so really, I guess really that's sort of a high level sort of overview of what we do. And I guess at this point, we can stop for a couple of questions. And then, as I said, again, I have a hard stop in a couple of minutes. But again, I suggest that you reach out if you're interested in a demo and see how this might work for your environment and your challenges. Atlantic can provide you with that, as well as we mentioned earlier, a link to request a demonstration. That's something that we'll provide in addition. So that's all I've got. So thank you, everybody, for joining. I appreciate
George,
your time this morning.
Before we close down, I'll just ask you a couple of the quick questions that we have here.
Sure.
If that's okay. One of them was, what is the ISO related to NIST?
I'm sorry, I got blurred a little.
Sorry,
what is
that? The first question is, what is the ISO related to NIST?
So ISO being an International Standards Organization.
Yep.
Yeah. So ISO IEC is a global body that has been involved with things like ISO 27000 series security, which sort of was the best thing we had until the NIST framework came along. And that really dealt with cybersecurity around ISMSs, which are information security management systems. So it was initially intended to look at ISMSs, not necessarily applications or targets of evaluation or things of that nature. It was designed for building a security management program within an organization primarily.
Okay. The next one is lengthy, but I'll try to read it. It says, George, Sven from Mitre, your proposed minimal set of maximally useful controls is very promising. Have you had any luck defining size categories for varying customer segments? You're a small shop with no formal government cyber requirements yet, so we recommend 30 pseudo NIST items. You're mid-size and pursuing government, state, academic customers, so we advise ISO or NIST low, low, low. You're a big defense supplier, so you already know. Do you need to do the whole enchilada? Question mark. Seems almost like there's a built-in hand-holding consultancy opportunity implicit to this tool.
Well, I always say that there are two types of frameworks. There's a type of framework that you've been told that you need to implement. Someone usually in a suit or a very nice dress has given you a list of controls, and they've said, here you go, you have to do these. Or the other camp is, these are controls that we're adopting because we believe in good hygiene, and we believe in Mitre, or we believe in NIST, or we believe in whatever have you. So really, it's really up to the risk profile of the organization. So it's really a muxing of what are the risks that are out there, what are the crown jewels and things they're trying to protect, what are the threats and vulnerabilities that might exist for this particular organization, what type of properties do they have, are they doing IoT, are they a cloud provider, are they a data center provider, are they a research and think tank like Mitre, for example. So they all are going to have different types of risks. And so really it's a matter of catering your business risk profile to your cybersecurity profile, and thus bridging the gap.
So it's sizable. You can.
Yeah, and then Mitre offers a good set of baseline controls, and really so starting from if you don't have any control frameworks currently in play, you're not going to go wrong by adopting one of these reputable frameworks.
Okay, thank you, Sven. A couple of quick ones here. Where does the AI component come in?
Well, there's two areas. One is in, as I said, natural language processing, which is taking in natural language threat feeds like, Red Dragon 44 malware has been discovered in the United States, for example. And we take that and we run that against Watson, and we've trained Watson to understand natural language such that it can go back into an assessment and show you this is where these are the three controls that Red Dragon are most likely to exploit in order to get into your system, right? And so that's one patent. And the other one is around the optimization, which is an efficient frontier, which was the topic of a Nobel Prize several years ago. And folks who aren't familiar with that and want to learn about it, you can read about efficient frontiers and how they work. It's sort of a best of a trade-off space kind of a model. And in order to do that instantaneously, we rely upon a black box, which is AWS AI.
Okay, two more quick ones. Under the controls section, can you briefly describe the differences and examples of use around the to-do, in progress, needs review, and done categories?
Yeah, so generally speaking, we provide that we see generally two use cases. We see a delegated use case where I want to push out as much of the stuff as possible to my organization because I don't have 100 people to go work on an assessment. So we generally see that as sort of a gate or a second set of eyes for maker checker, or four eyes principle for those who are familiar with that. That's one use case. The other use case is if you're a consultant and you're going out and doing an assessment, you're out on the road and you're looking at a data center somewhere, and you want to know, you might have 2 or 3 consultants deployed, and you want to know how far along are we in the assessment. And anything, there was a thermometer at the top that showed % complete. When done is marked, that increments the % complete as a function of the total number of controls that you have that you're assessing against. So if you had 100 controls and you completed 70 of them in an assessment in a team of 3, and you are all CISSPs and duly qualified auditors, and you may decide that done is the marking, and then you can tell the customer we're 70% done, or this is when we're going to finish. Those are 2 use cases we generally see. But again, that's something that you can use to your liking or to your utility.
Okay. Can the solution be used by a consultant working with multiple clients? And also, can you change the currency settings? Yeah,
both. The platform, we do have consultant users of the platform who go out and conduct assessments. And so that's a very common use case and a very effective use case. And so what was the second question?
The currency.
Currencies can be changed, and that can be done in a number of different ways. One of our report outputs is simply the POAM, which is in the plan of actions and mitigations, which is exported as an Excel file, which is the expected format for many auditors. And it can be done there with currency rate change, or it can just be done in a simple straight calculation.
Okay. Thank you I know you're over, so if anyone else has any more questions, I think we answered all the ones that have showed up here. Feel free to email us at Atlantic Data to get any of your other questions. I'll also be sending out a thank you email that will have email link to kind of set up a demo and ask some more questions about that. George, I really want to thank you guys. To me, with the complexity of compliance, the ever-growing compliance regulations, to me, a partnership with Cybersecurity is like a no-brainer. Even with other products that touch compliancy with some tick boxes, I feel like you guys really give the deep dive and the laser point focus on compliance, which a lot of people unfortunately have to deal with. So yes, we want to thank you guys for joining us. George, I appreciate you going over.
Yeah, thank you everyone too for attending. It's great to see such a robust group of participants, and I know it's early in the mornings for some of you. So thank you very much for joining.
You were like a cup of coffee for all of us. See that?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. And also, there's 2 more links later on this afternoon on Cyber Thursday. We have CrowdStrike starting at 10 and Logarithm starting at 11. So if you want to look at the chat session, there's some links there. Thank you, George, again, and I appreciate everyone for joining. Feel free to send over some questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, George. Take care.